And welcome back again. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander of Keeping It Simple, Keeping It Honest, and Keeping It Real. I'd like to thank everybody for supporting the show. Make sure you look down there, you see our stuff scrolling it down, and take your time to read it, understand it, and support our show. We'd like to thank everybody who's been watching our program. Tell your friends, hit the like and share button, and also subscribe. I thank you for supporting our show. And what we try to do on this show is we try to give you both sides of the story. We try to give you the left side, try to give you the right side. And at the end, hopefully you will decide. You may be mad at what you see or hear at the end of the program, but at least you know you're getting the truth. And then we're doing our job. Speaking of job, so this show is kind of like if you're campaigning. Now, I ran for Congress, and I might do that again, especially after talking to some people. And when you're running for office, you have to ask for contributions to keep you going. So, as you'll see in this particular show, like we have in all shows, we put a lot of work into everything. And what keeps us going is me getting feedback from some people saying, "Hey, why don't you do a story about this?" I hate it sometimes when I miss a story because some of these stories they just come so quick that I don't have time to research it and put it together. But I try my best. So if you want to contribute to our show and keep us going, kind of think of it as a PBS show where the quality improves as you support the show. And if you've seen us when we first started, hopefully we've gone a lot better in the shows we're doing now and also some of our subjects. So in the About page, hit it, and then you'll see this thing called Patreon. Click that, and you'll get to our page. So Patreon is a page where you can contribute to the show. If you say, wow, I like what this guy's doing, he's doing things that mainstream media isn't doing. I want to continue to see his Parker edge. I think I'll contribute to help him out. So we have three tiers. You get on that page, Patreon, and it's keeping it honest. But you hit the About on our site right here, and it'll take you right to that page. And it'll tell you how much you can pay. You can pay anything you want. You can pay monthly payment plan, or you can just pay per show. And then there's three different tiers. So whatever you pay, you get something extra. So please support that. A lot of people are doing that. And I've seen some shows that it's like, wow, everybody has their own discretion of what they want to see on the show, kind of like mainstream. And some people supporting those shows. So we have some upcoming surprises coming on, which I'm very excited. You've seen me a lot talking about issues, but you're going to see me and some guests too. And you see that's been how we do things with Park and Twist. We have a lot of people coming on our show. Not to say anything, but stay tuned as we put things in the Park and Twist. So speaking of twist, we have a lot of topics we're going to be talking about today. um, this is one of my favorite ones. I've always been a Tupac fan. And finally, supposedly, they have somebody connected with Tupac. So we're going to talk about that. What really happened to Tupac? Is he really alive? Unions. Are you for or against unions? UAW. You know, they're very supportive of a politician who's really there for them. And they will support you if you're a politician that really cares. You look at some of these politicians, you've seen them recently. How much are they worth? Can you be a politician and not have a lot of money? I don't know. I've tried to go down that scale and I've got no money, but I've got farther than a lot of people have had money. Speaking of money, the shutdown. What do you do with the government shutdown? Are you surprised if it does or doesn't? RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., an interesting guy. He might have a surprise or two up his sleeve because he's tired, really. of the Republican and the Democratic Party. So speaking of parties, there's one person that just kind of, oh man, gets to me. And recently, he was on a show, Tim Scott, and he talked about slavery. Everybody knows that, uh, he's been a African American guy that went through the trenches and became an African American politician. But is he a politician as African American or is he an African American politician? And he's running for president. He is lucky if he gets maybe 5% of the vote, but he's got a lot of donors. And I think I told you before, if you're talking to the people that you need to talk to, then you're going to meet those people. So a lot of people get the money, and he may not be talking to the African American audience, but he is talking to that money audience. And we have to pay tribute to um, Miss Feinstein too, who recently passed away, and we're going to do that. And then, when are you too old to continue to run for office and stay in office? And then, do you really stay until you die? Should there be term limits? We're going to talk about that too. And some things people may not want to hear, but you know what? That's what we do. We keep it simple, we keep it honest, and we keep it real. So I'm going to play you this. And this is Tim Scott talking about slavery. What is up with him? And did it really help us? Think about this. Did slavery really help us? Did it make us better workers? Did it make us say, hey, you know what? We're getting beat. Let's think of another way of pleasing our slave owners and maybe learn something on the side. Makes you think, well, if there wasn't slaves, would we be where we're at now? Would we have been running for office? Would we have stores in communities? Would we even have talk shows or streaming shows or anything? But unfortunately, we're still being called the first. After slavery was abolished years ago, we still have a lot of room, unfortunately, to be called the first. When will we ever get in mainstream? Well, you know what? Did it really all start with slavery? I want you to look at this from Tim Scott, and then we're going to give an opinion.
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talk about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand new leader. And I'm asking for your vote.
All right, boy. And Tim Scott took a bunch of hits on that. God bless America. Tim Scott. So how many people saw that? Excuse me. And were either, wow, he's brave to do that, or wow, he's crazy. You ask a lot of people, especially African Americans, and they will say, whatever's happening across this world, I'm just worried about my community. Again, if it doesn't affect you, who cares? But do we look at Tim Scott as a role model? Because look, he is a congressperson and he is running for president. but he has ticked off a lot of people. So this opinion, because you hear my opinion sometime, but this opinion was by Isaac Bailey. So remember what you just heard, what you just saw. Tim Scott spouted a special kind of evil during the second Republican presidential primary debate. It was supremely idiotic and indecent in the extreme. It was disgusting and immorally in service of white conservatives he believes requires a level of evil, indecency, and immorality so profound it ought to shock the conscience. Scott said what he said because he believes that's what his target audience wants to see. He's convinced the white conservatives he needs to secure the GOP presidential nomination have no morals, no principles, not even a grade school understanding of slavery, of its effects. They should feel as much shame for how little he thinks of them as he should for having held forth on whitewashed nonsense. Scott's absurdity comes amid a period in which too many conservatives in too many states have been fighting to implement a Lost Cause 2.0 to shave off the edges of the worst of this country's history to reestablish comfortable lies and myths. The first black man from the Deep South to have won a seat in the U.S. Senate since Reconstitution, stood on a stage in front of an overwhelming white audience and compared the struggles black people faced during race-based chattel slavery. Slavery to when entitlement programs got their start. He made it clear he believed black people had it better under slavery. Slavery, or at least less bad. Black families survived slavery, he said. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was President Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail. And you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, and devastation. David Duke and Richard Spencer couldn't have said it better. Thomas Jefferson, the man who argued that black people weren't really all that human, probably sat up in his grave and clapped after Scott spoke. Scott's words weren't just offensive, but flat wrong. The black unemployment rate fell during Johnson's time in office, while the black poverty was drastically cut, even though black people were decades from being able to fully utilize the Great Society programs the way white people did from the outset. He decided that slavery was the right comparison. Slavery. Hmm. He wasn't satisfied with making a policy agreement, couldn't just say he believed conservatives have better ideas and explained why he was the best candidate to turn them into reality when in the White House. He had to bring slavery into it. Slavery. The period during which the white enslaver could rape any black woman he wanted at any time, no matter her marital status, or sell off a black husband or a black wife or black kids for whatever reason that he wanted. It was referring to the period in which a third of black farmers or families were torn asunder during the Second Middle Passage alone. Scott represents the first state to recede from the Union, the state where the Civil War began after Citadel candidates fired on the federal installation Fort Sumner. South Carolina was the only state in which at least half of all white households included enslaved people. Scott knows this. He's no dummy. Not too long ago, he spoke forthrightly about systematic racism, how even a U.S. senator, he was racially profiled several times while going to work in D.C. But he's also a black man who made it easier for white evangelical Christians in our state to accept Donald Trump when he jumped onto the Trump train even before Nikki Haley and Lindsey Graham. That's why what he did was so devastating. Wow. Since Haley appointed him to replace the retiring Senator Jim DeMint, I've struggled to respect the man, knowing he is in a precarious position in my native South Carolina. After what I saw, that struggle ended. Scott has made his choice, an ugly one, unworthy of anyone's respect. Isaac Bailey. Think about that. Wow. So that's not my opinion, but it could be, and it could be yours. So let me know what you think of that. Tim Scott. Wow. You know, if he does become president, you know how we call Biden Uncle Joe? Hmm. If he gets in office and people think, well, you know what? We're not going to call him Tim. We're going to call him Tom, like Biden's Uncle Joe. Would Tim Scott be Uncle Tom? And welcome back again. Yours truly, Anthony Parker. Keeping it simple, keeping it honest, and keeping it real. You can email yours truly, Parkerman, Parkerman, Parkerman 2011, 2011 at gmail.com, Parkerman2011 at gmail.com. You can text me at numbers 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Tell your friends. Hopefully, like I said, you may not like everything we do, but we try to keep it simple, try to keep it honest, and we try to keep it real. Over the past shows, we have talked about politics, and we've talked about people in office sometimes being in there too long. We've had politicians who have been there literally for decades until they die. Now we're seeing a lot of politicians that are in there. Out of most countries, we have some of the oldest politicians in office. We have politicians sometimes that just won't go away. They're still here. Some of these politicians, too old to serve another term. Among U.S. adults, 77% think Biden's too old. 51% think Trump's too old. Now, out of that, again, that's a lot of people that say, hey, you know what? Let's give the other generation a chance. Biden, 80 years old. Trump, 77 years old. Mitch McConnell, 81 years old. Are they too old to be in office? Because we've been seeing things happen with Mitch McConnell, where he's been freezing up. We've been seeing things with Biden a little bit where he's seems like he's learned his words and slowly walking. But then you wonder, is that an age thing or just a people thing? So when you have stuff like that happen, if you're a family member, do you say, hey, you know what, why don't you just step aside now? If it's a physical problem because of age, how much power do you want? If you are in office and America sees, you have some kind of problem, don't you think your camp sees that problem when people say, oh, Biden, he's as smart as a whipper. He's on everything. Okay, we've kind of seen it, and maybe it's not age, maybe it's just what's happening with him. We've seen it. We know his family members have seen it. And do you want somebody you care for to be doing what they love doing, but then looking bad doing it? Again, if you're a football player and you're not making touchdowns, or you're a basketball player and you're not making baskets, when is it time to just step down and let the next generation come in? And because at one point in time, you're going to have to think, when am I not doing my job? When am I just somebody just sitting here? Because if you continue to be in office and you're not really doing your due diligence, then unfortunately, your life may turn into this. Recently, Senator Feinstein passed away, and she was the longest serving female U.S. senator in history. She passed away at the age of 90. She died at her home in Washington. So her death hands California Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom, and unfortunately life goes on, the power to appoint a lawmaker to serve out the rest of of her term, keeping the Democratic majority in the chamber through early January 2025. So she has at least another year. So Newsom has said that he would, and he publicly said this, he would promote a African American person, and which is interesting. When you're saying you're going to do that, are you saying that because you want to appease African Americans? Is that a racist statement? Is that affirmative action gone wrong? That look, I'm going to uh, bring in an African American to replace her. So speaking of Feinstein, she was a former mayor of San Francisco. She was a leading figure in California politics for decades, and she was a national face of the Democratic Party. She broke a series of glass ceiling, and she was very influential on Capitol Hill. So her last time that she was really, I guess, influential, but we'll go back. She did a federal assault weapons ban in '94 and a 2014 CIA torture report. She also was a longtime force on the Senate intelligence. Now, in her later years, because we've seen how, she was a little bit, unfortunately, her health was a subject more than anything she did in office. And her age, she would fall asleep, unfortunately, wouldn't know what she would be doing. In February, she had a shingles incident. She was hospitalized, and she wasn't around as much. Now, this lady was 90 years old. And a fall in August briefly sent her to the hospital. So she was the oldest member at the time of her death, but she faced questions about her mental ability to lead. And she replied, the real question is whether I'm still an effective representative for 40 million Californians, and the record shows that I am. So, because of the pressure of her and people looking at her, she said she would not run for re-election in 2024. She has said the time has come. And after her passing, and they do this when somebody passed, her desk was draped with a black cloth and a vase of white flowers atop it. And Joe Biden, himself a longtime colleague of Feinstein, or Feinstein for more than 50 years, called her a cherished friend. So when somebody like that passed away, and she literally passed away while still working, and she was older, like really older, 90 years old, does it look at the morality and mortality of other individuals in office? Mitch McConnell, Joe Biden, when do you want to spend time with your family? And when do family say, you know what, maybe you should slow up and spend time with us? So the interesting story too about her, I was reading this. So back in 1993, and some of you guys may have heard of the story, as a San Francisco County supervisor, she became the city's mayor in 1978 in the wake of the assassination of Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk. Now he was the first openly gay politician from California to be elected to office. I've heard about the story, Supervisor Harvey Milk. But the interesting thing about this story, Feinstein rarely talked about the day when Moscone and Milk were shot. And this happened in City Hall. So Dan White at the time had been a friend of hers. The door to the office opened and he came in and I said, Dan, I heard the door slam, I heard the shots, I smelled the cordite. So it was Feinstein who announced the double assassination to the public. She was later sworn in as the first female mayor of San Francisco. So her political career, because she was around for over 90 years, she broke the glass ceiling many times. She was the first female chair of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. She was California's first woman sent to the U.S. Senate. She was the first woman to sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee and the first female chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. She held the title of ranking member from 2017 to 2021. So when she reflected about her career, she said, look, being a woman in our society, even today, is difficult. I know it in the political arena. We went from 2 women senators when I ran for office in 1992 to 24 today. And I know that number will still keep climbing. It has been a great pleasure to watch more and more women walk the Senate halls. So, this lady, Miss Feinstein, a legendary lady, we pay tribute to her because she was around for years. And unfortunately, is she going to be remembered for the legacy of what she did, or in the last years of her life for the legacy of what she didn't do? So, whose fault was that? She wanted to work, and some people, that's all they want to do. They want to work, and to the end of their last breath, they will do that. But when you look at the last days of her life, and last years, was it something to be proud of? Did people let her down? I'm watching one of the meetings, and they're in the chamber, and she's there, and she's ready to make a motion to vote on this agenda, and they said, whispered her, no, that's not what you do. So she would be there and just sitting there. It was really sad to see. The Senator Feinstein. And you know what? The humanity of this, everybody's got crazy family. So you see crazy family, and man, she had a crazy family, and I'm gonna tell you the story about the family. So she was in a dispute over her late husband's estate. And here we go. 3 lawsuits. Tell me, has this been any of you guys? 3 lawsuits filed over the summer by Diane Feinstein's daughter, Catherine, highlighted a painful chapter in the twilight of her long and successful career. So not only was she being looked at because people were like, why is she even there? Maybe she take some time off. Maybe she'll resign. She was also going through a money issue with her family. So in the last few months of her life, she was in a legal dispute with her stepdaughters over the vast money from the estate of her late husband. So in 3 lawsuits filed over the summer, and this is only in the summer, Catherine Feinstein, the 2 sides of the family were fighting over a multi-million-dollar beach home and money to pay for medical expenses, which included a home health aid care person. You think if she's got a lot of money, it should be easy. So for friends and associates, the family drama over finances became another painful chapter in her life. So the trustee for Mr. Bloom's estate raised questions about how much money the senator was aware of what was going on, how much money she had, and if she was capable of managing her own affairs. So we saw her in office, and I don't think even in office she was okay as far as managing her affairs. So just this month, right before she passed away, the judge ordered the 2 sides to enter mediation to try to resolve the dispute, and the parties were not to come back until January. So now that she passed, the fate of the litigation is unclear, but it could become more complex because her stepdaughter is supposedly in line to have claims to portions of this money. Wow. She has long, Miss Feinstein, been one of the wealthiest people in office. She was raised in money, and her second husband, Dr. Bertram Feinstein, was a neurosurgeon before he died in 1978. When she entered the Senate, she placed securities in a trust fund that, according to her most recent finances, because it's required for politicians, is valued between $3 million and $25 million. So she has a lot of money. And the state that she's fighting over, her ex-husband or former husband, Richard Bloom, who died. So now she's dead. And where's all this money going? It's going supposedly to the person who's fighting to get the money. Just a matter of time. Now again, oldest United States senator. Well, Senator Dianne Feinstein, she's no longer with us, unfortunately. She was 90. Chuck Grassley is 89. Senator Richard Shelby is 89. Senator Jim Inhofe is 83. Senator Patrick Leahy, wow, 83. Senator Bernie Sanders, 81. Senator Mitch McConnell, 81. Senator Jim Rich, 83. Senator Ben Cardin is 79. And Senator Angus King is 79. So is there any time for these people to step out and enjoy their life? Some people are saying, if you remember, I think Nikki Haley said something about this not being a retirement home or something like that not too long ago. Does she regret that she said that? Because you think about that, she wants to be one of new blood coming in. And is she going to apologize now for the statement she made concerning people in office and that they could barely move? Do you feel bad? So where you're at an age and your capabilities are being slow, and maybe not because of age, when you step down, when you have the people that are behind you say, look, you need to step down. Nancy Pelosi is thinking about running again for the Speaker of the House. That much power, you can have a lot of money. But how many people want the power? Wow. We keep it simple, we keep it honest, we keep it real. And what we're going to do when we come back, which I'm going to we still have to talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and how much money do you have to spend if you're running for politics? Do you have to have a lot of money to run? Well, a lot of these people that are running, they're not putting it into their campaign, but they're putting their money because they make more money after running. And some people are running possibly so they can have book deals and have more money. We're keeping it honest. We're keeping it real. We're going to talk about that after this. And welcome back again. Here's truly Anthony Parker Alexander of Keeping It Honest. So far, we talked about the death of the senator. We have talked about, Tim Scott, which we're going to talk about again, and his take on slavery. We're not going to talk about that. How much money does he have? We're going to talk about some of the politicians that are running and some of the money that they have. We're going to talk about some of the news that's currently taking place now. So by the time you see us again, are we going to have a shutdown? The United States, a shutdown. We have so much things going on. We have the debates. We have Donald Trump going to court. We have the Bidens trying not to literally go to court. We're trying to make ends meet. Why are we possibly having a shutdown? By the time you see the show, we might have already had the shutdown. So, how's a shutdown matter to us? Shutting down the government isn't an effective way to make a point. Democrats, Republicans, who's trying to make the point? Why aren't they getting together? Why is it so hard? Keeping it open is the only way to make a difference on the most important issues we are facing. So now a shutdown, when you think about it, would it affect me? A shutdown would mean that some segments of the government would work without pay. Now, would you work without pay? And they would be compensated with back pay once the shutdown was over. So what if they shut down for 2 weeks? You're not getting money. You're working for the government. What if you don't want to work? What if you want to get another job? So people who will be working without pay, the military, some federal law enforcement, transportation security administration employees, and federal aviation administrative workers such as air traffic controllers and those TSAs. Food assistance for the poor will continue for a brief period, but it may run out of financing after only a few days. And with Kevin McCarthy, how will it affect him? This may trigger to move him out of office. All right. So why does this matter? Because it shows you that Congress isn't really working together. So what happens during a government shutdown? Again, excuse me, most government operations halt. They stop until Congress acts. Each federal agency, though, comes up with a plan that outlines which of its functions will continue during a shutdown and how many will be furloughed until the shutdown ends. Well, what if I'm not a government worker, a TSA person? How does it affect me? So, because many federal workers are off the job, many services are stopped or slowed, disturbing the day to day operations for many Americans. You may not think it affects you, but if you're a senior citizen, it will. Americans with disabilities and others would continue to be distributed. Social Security payments to seniors will come. The Postal Service would also continue regular service. In some states, some of their parks will be open, some of it won't. So that's a good thing. Will it affect senior citizens? No, but it could eventually do that. So during the last government shutdown, this took place in 2018, 2019, an estimated $420,000 for federal employees, they worked without pay, and another 400,000 were furloughed. But depending on which agencies are affected, those numbers could be much higher. Wow. So that was the shutdown. No matter what, you don't want it to happen. And again, it hasn't happened in a while, but we have a lot of things that have been happening in this presidency. Speaking of other things happening, all right, President Trump, he decided to visit the auto strikers, UAW, all right, and right here, auto workers for Trump. The interesting thing is, they didn't ask Trump to come, okay? And then, my favorite one, you have Joe Biden fist pumping, okay? Joe Biden wasn't even getting out of the house, so now he's going there. And I don't have the picture, but the person that really did it was Dr. Cornel West. He decided to go out there and be with the people. And Biden isn't one really to go and visit a lot of people. He did go to Ukraine, okay? But did he go to the city where the train collapsed? How long did it take to him to go to the state where a couple people died? And I don't mean a couple people, I mean a lot of people. Why hasn't he really been out there supporting people? He had said, well, if I go out there anywhere, then that means it takes away in the attention from the rescue of people. But I think if you go to these places, as you're supposed to as a politician, it shows that you think about it. So going to this UAW, and he's the first president to go there. And why is that? I mean, why didn't, Clinton go? Why didn't Bush go? Why didn't Obama go? Biden went there? Well, one reason he went is because he knows if he gets the support of the unions, then he's got a good chance of winning. But it's so bad now that even the unions are like, okay, well, you're here. What are you going to do? And with Trump, Trump has already said, you know what? I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and we'll see if it helps you out or not. So Trump wasn't invited. Biden was scheduled, and so he went there. But if you're going there, it's a good photo op. Fist pumping. All right, they're there for the people compared to I'm just going to do my speech and tell people what they want to hear. Where here, I'm going to show people. I'm going to show people I care. So is this going to ratchet up Biden's poll numbers? We're going to find out. I, of course, believe it won't. And with Trump, I believe it won't either. But speaking of somebody trying to do their numbers, we don't talk about this guy too much. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You've been keeping up with him. He's also running in the Democratic Party. He's got about 7% of the vote. Wanted to do a debate. Him and Marianne Williamson, who has about 5%, because you need 5% at least to do the debate. But Cool Joe doesn't want to do it. But then also, Donald Trump doesn't want to do it in his party. I think you should do debates. So he's been frustrated because he has said the Democratic Party has tried to hold him back. And in the media, people have asked him, well, would you have ever considered going independent or going green? He's like, no, I'm Democrat through and through. So now there's some breaking news. And he's an environmental lawyer. He teased a major announcement in upcoming weeks about speculation about dropping his bid against Joe Biden as a Democrat and instead running for president as an independent, or third party ticket. So as you're looking at this picture, he has said, I want to tell you now what I've come to understand after 6 months of campaigning. There is a path to victory. We all recognize that there's a genuine possibility of national transformation, and its source is the goodness in the American people. So he put together a 2-minute video announcing this event. He also called out the established Washington interests and said his campaign will change the habits of American politics. I don't know if he will or not, because he hasn't really changed it now. I understand that deeply felt concern that people have about the way corruption has overtaken our government. It's in the executive branch, it's in Congress, it's in the leadership of both political parties. So now Kennedy, who is a nephew of former President John F. Kennedy and son of assassinated 68 presidential candidate and former U.S. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, has run a controversial campaign that is sought to be a thorn in Biden and the Democratic Party's side. Wow. So now he's deciding maybe to go independent or go to a third party. Will he go libertarian? Would he go Green Party and be in the Green Party against Cornel West, or will he just be independent? And you look at that, how is that going to hurt people? How's that going to hurt Biden? How's that going to hurt Cornel West? How's it going to hurt Marianne Williamson? So mainstream media has said, you know what? With these politicians doing their own little parties, it's going to hurt Biden. My question is, if you weren't going to vote for Biden in the first place, maybe you have options now. And if Kennedy feels, well, you know what? People aren't voting for me because I'm in the Democrat Party. Why would they vote for you if you go to another party? How much of this can you shake out? How much of this will hurt Cornel West? Because now you may divide it. But then I look at it again. If you're an African American, let's say, and you didn't see anybody running, you didn't want to be a person for Trump, you didn't want to be a person for Biden. You're like, well, I got nobody. Oh, okay, here's somebody, Cornel West. Or here's somebody, Robert F. Kennedy. I'm going to put out my vote there because I wasn't putting it out there before. So all these choices, how's this going to turn out? We'll stay tuned. Keep it simple, keep it honest, and keep it real. A lot of stuff on the show. Like I said, you see what we're doing? So please support us because we do a lot of things. Campaigning. One thing I hated for campaigning. I hated to ask for money. So doing this show, you have to campaign to keep it going. So where I was campaigning to run for office and putting my money from fundraiser people to my campaign, Now I'm asking to keep my show and help develop my show as we continue to get people on the show, topics, and anything and everything that you would like that you don't see anywhere else. How much, again, when you see the candidates and you see Vivek, who we know has money, how much money do some of these people have? Well, you know what? We're going to break it down. We're going to tell you a couple of things. All right. Let's go to the person who I've been talking about a lot in this show, Tim Scott. So his net worth is $1 million. So it's small compared to Donald Trump's. Given where the South Carolina senator started, that's still pretty impressive. You got to give him credit. Unlike some of his competitors for the presidency, he neither inherited a great fortune nor has a prominent last name. Instead, he grew up in poverty. And I'm going to tell you his story kind of like he tells it, but you really believe it from me, hopefully. So he managed to start his own business. He built a small real estate portfolio. He won elections and became a millionaire, proving that the American dream is still possible, even for a poor black kid from South Carolina. Growing up just north of Charleston, South Carolina, as a grandson of a cotton picker and son of a single mother, Scott worked at a movie theater and he dreamed of becoming a professional football player. Wow. Now, what if he became a football player? But politics also intrigued him, starting with a run for student council in eighth grade and continuing through high school. He was eventually elected student government president, overcoming a more accomplished opponent and what he refers to as his own impressively prominent buck teeth. Don't know what that means. So he got his big break in 2010 when he won election to the United House, guaranteeing him, now look at this, a $174,000 annual salary, nearly triple the $60,000 he had paid himself as the owner of an insurance business. So there's some money in office. He took office in January 2011 and sold his firm for more than $500,000 3 months later. So he really committed. So before long, he started writing books, including two alongside former South Carolina Representative Trey Gowdy, and he eventually earned two, wow, because of that, 700,000 as an author between 2017 and 2022. So writing a book is very profitable. So what has he done with his money? That's the question. Worth just over $1 million today, he completely or partially owns at least five properties, one in DC and four in Palmetto State. That real estate portfolio accounts to the majority of his net worth. He also holds a federal pension that's worth, okay, listen to this. How much is it worth? Is he even getting close to some of the people? An estimated $265,000 after 12 years on Capitol Hill. No, he's not even close. Rounding out his portfolio, a collection of equity holdings, including shares in blue chip names like Apple, Boeing, Coca-Cola, and Target. Wow. So this guy, Ron DeSantos, I mean, not Ron DeSantos, Tim Scott, I'm letting you know he has worked this behind off. Wow. How many of you are related to, I guess, cotton pickers? I hate to laugh on that, but how far removed are that? Slavery, it's slavery day. So when he talks, maybe it's the approach that he does it. Is he appeasing the audience that he's talking to? Again, he's talking to people, but maybe he's not talking to the African American community. I like to see him do a forum in the African American community and see if people give him praise for what he's doing. But no matter what, you have to give him credit for where he's been and where he's going. And he is on the stage. He is on that stage because he's running against, and he believes he's running against people that he could beat, just like Ron DeSantis. So how much do you think this guy is worth? Almost the same, which is interesting. 1.2 million. So whether he wins the nomination, he's already gotten rich trying. So the Florida governor said he was worth 1.2 in a filing released, but a year ago He's made more than $300,000. So in less than a year, he's made more than $300,000 because he did a book deal, and it was also tied to his bid to run for White House. Marianne Williamson, they say she's got a book deal. How many other people are doing some of this because they've got things out? So why not run for president? Because you're running, you're promoting your stuff. So when your stuff comes out, bam, you're going to make some money. So his book coming out, The Courage to Be Free, Florida's Blueprint for America's Revival, they paid him $1.2 million. 12 years ago, let's go back, before he was nationally known, he published another book, Dreams from Our Founding Fathers, First Principles in the Age of Obama. Wow. Which gave him $20,000. That was it. So he's not used to living with a lot of money. He grew up middle class in Florida before heading to Yale, where he captained the baseball team and graduated in 2009. He started his career as a history teacher at a private school, then went to Harvard for law school, graduated in 2005. At 27, he landed a job with the United States Navy, which provided a modest salary. Wow. So he was kind of like us in some ways. And he's governor and now running for president against Donald Trump. Poll results way up here for Trump. Poll results way down here for DeSantis. And some people think that he will drop out of the race because he hasn't made any effort to move on. People say he's scripted. Some people say he's got those weird eyes. And some people say he has no personality. But Florida, from what we heard from him and what I've heard, has been a very great state for him. So you wonder, why can't he take what's done in Florida and take that to another level as he's run for president? Wow. They say he doesn't have a lot of charisma. And maybe in the end, that's what's going to do him in. So we're talking about some of the people who are running for president and how much they're worth. Speaking of charisma and how much they're worth, Mike Pence, his net worth is $4 million. So government pensions made the former vice president a millionaire in 2019, but he really cashed in at the 2020 election. It forced him back into the private sector. So he made more money when he got back into being just regular Mike Pence. It took him nearly 2 decades of government service to become a millionaire. Wow. But in the few years after being president, he's gotten almost as much money in those few years than it took him all those years to get to become president. He's gotten that money from being a public speaker, writer, and consultant after leaving the presidency. His book, Hell the Chief, made him wealthier, and he got about $4 million from that book. From the start of 2022 to June 2023, he's gotten more than $3.4 million. Wow. His wife, Karen, even wrote a book. She received $75,000 in advance for her book, When Is Your Time to Serve? So growing up, he was the son of a Korean War veteran who helped build oil company, an Indiana gas station, and convenience store chain with more than 200 locations at his peak. Mike Pence graduated from Indiana University Law School in '86. He passed on a job in his family's business, instead mounting unsuccessful campaigns for Congress in '88 and '90, and briefly working at a small law firm. Wow. So some people may not know about this, but a second congressional campaign erupted in scandal after they used political donations to cover a mortgage, credit card, and grocery bills. So come on, Pence, you should know better than that. He said, because of this, I'm not embarrassed that I need to make a living, he told the press at the time. Such personal spending, though, was legal then, though it has since been banned, but proved unpopular with voters. Wow. I mean, I could have told you too. Can you go into your bank or your political contributors and use it to pay your bills, even though you're hurting? To this day and age, a lot of people are doing that, a lot of politicians. And they think they can't get caught, but eventually they do. What is that? Crime doesn't pay? No. Just try to make the money. So one of my favorite people comes and goes. Is she a Trump supporter? Is she not? But she was a good Secretary of State and good South Carolina governor. And she's running to be the next president. I think that she will become maybe a vice president candidate. I know she's looking for something, but boy, does she have fire when she talks. She goes after Vivek, and she pretty much says, "I don't trust you." Just like Christie, I don't think she likes anybody. She wants to win. So, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley's platform is "Don't mess with me." So, at the height of her career, her family was short on cash. Think about this. She quit the Trump administration and made millions. When she was Secretary of State, she wasn't making a lot. She last served in office as a U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Her family's finances were a mess. Wow. Her parents owed at that time over $1 million and were in danger of losing their home. A devoted daughter, she had loaned them hundreds of thousands of dollars in the past with her husband, but she could not solve all of the parents' problems with less than $100,000 sitting in her bank accounts and almost $200,000 coming in each year in salary. She wrote two books after leaving the Trump administration: a 2019 memoir that sold more than 100,000 copies, and a 2022 title gave her more than $350,000 in advance payments. She offered also consulting services, generating more than 700,000 in fees. And then there were corporate boards. She was on them. She got over $300,000 in cash and stocks. And she remains on the board of the United Homes Group, which gave her over 250,000. So her roots came from her childhood. Her parents came to America to offer their children opportunity, even though they lived comfortably in their native India. Her father was a son of a commanding officer in the British colonial army, and her mother was in a large house full of servants. Wow. They settled in the small town of Bamberg, South Carolina in 69. Her father got a job as a professor, and in 1976, her mother opened a clothing business named Erotica International. Wow. Had to be an interesting company. So as you see, some people have a lot of money and some people don't. Her net worth is $8 million. A little bit more than some of the other candidates running. Speaking of running, and we just talked about him, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You wonder, man, this guy, does he have a lot of money because he's a Kennedy? Well, let me tell you about what he is worth. So you figure he's a Kennedy, he's got to have some money. He dresses pretty good. So, and do you like Kennedy? Some people do, some people don't. How many people are voting on him because he is a Kennedy? His net worth, surprisingly, is low. It's $15 million. So the Kennedys have a lot of money. We know that, but they also have a lot of kids, leaving them with less than you might expect. Wow. He has, and I was kind of surprised. Think of, well, think of this: the Kennedys. He has where he can ask for money, and they will give it to him. But he has a lot of kids, so he's only got, like I said, 15 million. For decades, the Kennedy clan was one of America's most powerful families. Jeez. He got one of the most lucrative deals because he's smart in the stocks. But his father, Joe Kennedy, 29 grandchildren. He's the fourth to run for president and the first to do so without the backing of the broader family. Yeah, because if you know, a lot of people in the family, they're not even supporting him. He's got 50 million. They're not supporting him. So that estimates his worth at about 15 million, and that's including the access to his wife's income. And her name is Cheryl Hines. And we know her. She's from the show Curb Your Enthusiasm. I didn't know he was married to her. Wow, one of my favorite actresses. So their family is worth, or he's worth, about 15 million. You think it'll be a lot more? Speaking of a lot more, here's a guy, man. Maybe he's so brash because he's so rich. Vivek, this guy. You see him on TV, $1 billion. So a very smart guy, okay? And he believes in capitalism. Democrats and Republicans alike, he says, we tend to be more proud of a country when we're all making more money in that country. We don't have to flog ourselves for capitalism. Stop apologizing for capitalism. We should embrace it. Wow. At 38 years old, he has almost $1 billion. Wow. Making him one of the 20th youngest billionaires in the country. Hmm. No matter what, he's got all that money. He's still in second place. But then he does a show, like I said, and where he interviews people, and he seems down to earth. But recently, in the past, he's been taking some hits as far as running for president. They say he's Trump 2.0, or that he's running to be like a Trump, and maybe he wants to be, you know, the person who's vice president. So we all know this guy, Joe Biden. People are saying he's been funneling money for years. What is he worth? Well, it says his net worth is $10 million. But as he go through this investigation, they say it's more than that. So he's worth an estimated $10 million, up from 8 million when he took office. So when he took office, he's only 2 million. Now he's 8 million. So that means he's doing a lot. How does he get this money? He sits on real estate. Wow. He has this summer house, which is estimated at 4.3 million. And the year that he left the presidency, he earned 11.11 million, cashing in on speeches. He added a pool, which may have cost as much as 75,000 to increase his house. So it was a wise investment. And the home is now worth $4.5 million. Wow. He appears to be the second wealthiest person competing in the Republican Party. Not talking about Biden, but talking about Vivek. And last but not least, you know him, you love him, you can't get enough of him, Donald Trump. They say he is worth $2.5 billion. Wow, I dropped my papers too. So you get a $2 billion guy, Vivek, against a $2.5 billion guy, Trump. Who's going to win money-wise? Is it all about money? So they are saying with the Truth Social that he thought they were going to make a lot of money with that. But right now he's taking a loss because when Twitter X took him off the account, he couldn't say anything. He said, you know what, I'm wealthy. I can make my own. So he made X. He made Truth Social, and it hasn't been as popular as he thought. So he's losing a little money on that. But he's still worth about $2 billion. Wow. So does it take a lot of money to run? Because you look at some other people that are running, and okay, they have a lot of money. So why are they running? Because we don't know who they are, but they have a lot of money. So to me, the more money you have and you lose, the more you have to lose. So when I was running, I ran against a Trump backer and two other people, and there were millions of dollars put into the guy that ran for my situation in Congress. Millions of dollars. Then the other two people, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then it was me, just me, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when the other two people lost, and the other guy won, I didn't lose anything. It showed me that, wow, you can make a difference and run where the other two people, they probably are still paying their bank. So if you have a lot of money, it does help, but also being around the right people and having them believe in you. And that's one thing Tim Scott is doing. he's had a lot of people that are jumping on the bandwagon where he may move up past everybody. And it may be potentially Trump against Tim Scott because he's talking to the people that he needs to talk to. You may not be looking for grassroots because he's saying, hey, grassroots isn't getting me anywhere. Shoot, I believe slavery was good, so why would grassroots people want to support me? People are saying I'm bold for saying these statements, and so they want to support me and fundraise and help me out. So give him credit for what he's doing, good or bad. But again, if he gets in office like Joe Biden, will he be Uncle Tom or Uncle Tim? So my favorite story coming up after this, Tupac, has the mystery been solved? And we'll be right back. We're going to talk about what happens if Tupac is still alive. Some people say he is. Where would he be at now? And we're going to break down Puff Diddy, Puff Daddy. Did he or anybody else we know keep it on down low? Did the police keep it on down low? Because we're finding who was supposedly in on killing Tupac 25 years later. That's something interesting. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. And welcome back again. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander, and you are watching Keeping It Honest. You have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011 at gmail.com, parkerman2011 at gmail.com. You can give me a call, drop me a line, text me, 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. This story, excuse me, fascinated by it. Right here, Tupac. And that's where we should have done the commercial. Tupac. A lot of people don't know this. He's on Hollywood Walk of Fame. So, one of my favorite parts, something I've always wanted to do, and I'll tell you, back when Tupac was killed, I was doing a radio show called Parker After Dark. And it wasn't just a radio show, but it was future radio. And what we did, we tried to do things with a Parker twist. And as you can see, we're doing here, we kind of do things with Parker twist. For example, I did a show. And I liked the experiment, always fascinated with Dr. King. And the name of my show was I Have Evidence That Dr. King is Alive. And people are like, you're doing a show about Dr. King? It's kind of crazy. Dr. King is dead. So I did the show, kept teasing it up until the end. And I said, I have proof that Dr. King is alive. People are like, what proof do you have? I said, okay, here's a proof. Anytime, you don't have to sit in the back of the bus and you can just come on and sit, Dr. King's alive. Anytime you can go in the office and there's a water fountain over there and you can go and drink it and they can't say no, Dr. King is alive. Anytime you can go in a restaurant and you can sit anywhere you want to sit, Dr. King is alive. So if you keep that dream that Dr. King kept alive and you continue to keep it alive, then Dr. King is alive. So there you go. I like quirkiness. I like keeping it honest, keeping it real. And now we are talking about Tupac. So anyway, when I was doing this show and Tupac passed away, is one of my favorite hip hop artists, and still is. I was on air, and I was supposed to go off the air. I was on from 11 to 1, 11 at night to 1 and 1 doing a talk show. And after found out he was dead, I decided to keep us on for an extra hour to talk about it. Against the owner's wishes, I got in trouble, but I got the fans of Tupac to talk, and it was very special to me. So again, to be able to talk about Tupac is very special to me. So this guy right here, he's the guy, okay, that has supposedly been connected with the death of Tupac. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. He's been charged with the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur. Look at that right there. Okay? And these are the sheriff people. But let's get a closer look on this guy. Okay? Here we go. Why was he charged? Well, before that, all right, let's go back to where the story started out. Let's go back to some of the rumors and then get to where we're at now. And I know if you're old enough, you heard some of these rumors, but it all started when Biggie Smalls' murder case was reopened by his mother in 2006. This is Biggie Smalls' mother. So his mother, Violetta Wallace, she sued the LAPD for an estimated sum of $500 million. And this was based on the conspiracy theory that the police covered up the death of her son. This is Biggie. The case was consequently reopened in 2006 and handed to LAPD detective Greg Carding, who discovered more than what he was hoping for. So he found something more. So Keene believes the murders of Tupac and Biggie Smalls were related. So think about this now. We just got the associate killer of Tupac. So maybe he knows something about the killing of Biggie. So the first thing to note is that Detective Carding claims the deaths of the Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac were related. While investigating Biggie's death, he discovered new information linking both cases. Now we're going back to the guy in the dark sunglasses. Let me see if I get my pictures here. This guy, you know him, you love him, you just can't get enough of him. He's been around, man, for decades. Biggie. We know that Biggie, even back then, we always assumed if you were around then, that Biggie had something to do with the murders. Because every video, he was always in every video. He was a great promoter. He's like the Donald Trump of rap producers. So he was always involved in something. But some people thought back then that Puff Daddy hired hitmen to kill Tupac. So based on 3 years of working on the case, the detective came to the conclusion that Sean Puff Daddy Combs put a $1 million hit on both Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight, following a highly publicized rap beef involving himself and Biggie. So the cop claims the music mogul had close ties in LA, gang ties, and he hired Crip mentor Dwayne Keefe D to carry out the hit. And that's the guy right here. Okay. So did Puff Daddy hire this guy to kill Tupac? So who already pulled the trigger, or who actually pulled the trigger on Tupac? So this is where the story gets interesting because some of this he does collaborate. So the police claim that Tupac was killed by Crips gang member Orlando Baby Love Anderson, which they say is true. He's the relative of this guy right here. So it says he killed him at the last minute after they unexpectedly pulled up on the wrong side of Tupac's vehicle. So Keffi's nephew carried out the hit instead of killing Tupac and injuring Suge Knight. Wow. Interesting. Baby Lane also got into a fistfight with Pac at a Vegas casino hours before the shooting took place. And if you remember, you might have seen this where Tupac was in Vegas and Tupac did approached this guy and they fought. It's all on tape. And the guy said, I'm going to get some revenge. But you think about this, if Tupac hadn't retaliated, maybe Tupac would still be alive. We all know Tupac, we all love him, but he was one. He couldn't hold his feelings. Couldn't hold him. So Biggie Smalls' then wife at the time, and let me see if I can find you guys a picture of her. The wife at the time, they wondered did she have something to do with the two. Her name is Faith Evans, and she was a singer, songwriter, and back then she was like really popular. She was married to Biggie Smalls. And boy, you talk about everything's kind of like a soap opera. That's kind of like what it is. So back then in the 90s, rappers, they really were gangsters, east side, west side. Back in my days of doing radio, I kept up with a lot of them. And some of the music was really popular, but they had edges. If somebody said something about a rapper or did something personally, they would talk about them on their next single and it'd go back and forth. So Faith Evans, she was married at the time to Biggie Smalls, and they have asked that she know about Diddy's plot to kill Tupac. After the West Coast rapper was murdered, Keffy, and that's him again, he claims that he contacted Diddy and told Diddy and said Evans will let her know that they were responsible for the death. That's a lot of stuff. Does that mean Biggie was involved in Tupac's murder? That's what people want to know. No, the detective claims that Biggie did not play any part in the murder of Tupac, despite their well-documented rap beef. Wow. He says that Biggie was not aware of Diddy's plan to kill both Shakir and his manager, Suge Knight. After Tupac died, it's alleged that Suge Knight paid a hitman to kill Biggie. Wow. And there's been talk about that too. So after narrowly avoiding death in the murder of Tupac, Death Row Records boss Suge Knight, he allegedly retaliated by hiring a Bloods gang member to kill the notorious B.I.G. Wow. He also claims, the police claim that Knight was Tupac's killer and actually went to the same school as hired hitman Keffy D. So this guy, if this story is true, then he was involved with a lot of stuff. And even if he wasn't the killer, as some have claimed, he's claimed he was. But boy, does he know a lot. So who actually killed Biggie? So Blood member Poochie Faust supposedly killed Biggie after being paid $13,000 by Suge Knight. And according to the police, he attended the same party as Biggie and fired shots at his car as he attempted to leave. Biggie later died on the way to the hospital. The murder case was dropped, interestingly, after the LAPD proved they were not involved in a conspiracy. So they dropped the case. So according to Cardi, the police officer, it was abandoned despite the in-depth investigation because the LAPD were able to beat the $500 million case posed to Biggie's mother. So because they were able to beat the case that the mother tried to sue them for, they decided we're not going to do the investigation. Some people consider Keating a rogue cop. So what happened to the alleged murderers? So Orlando Baby Lane Anderson and Wardell Faust have reportedly died of current unrelated cases. Yes, it's kind of interesting. Supposedly the guy that supposedly killed Tupac, he died a couple years later. So this guy right here, years later, why is he so popular? Why are the cops taking him in? Are we at the end of this, as some people say? I don't think so. And look at this picture. Suge Knight. Some people say he killed Biggie. Some people say Puffy killed Biggie. We know back then that these two guys, Biggie and Suge, very powerful people. He looks like a crime boss. But man, he was a guy that knew how to make money. Really, a guy knew how to make money. Another guy that knows how to make money, P. Diddy. There's Biggie right there. And there is, of course, Tupac. Again, Puff Daddy have anything to do with this? I don't know, but the talk has been there for a long time. And again, as I clarify this picture right here is a picture of Biggie and Tupac at the Mike Tyson event in Vegas right before Tupac died. But you wonder again, if Tupac hadn't got involved and retaliated, would he still be alive today? And some people say he is alive. So now, again, let's go back to this theory. Why is this guy so popular? Did he do something? Go here real quick. Or was he a guy that just knows everything? So the Los Angeles police, they confirmed that Dwayne Davis, aka Cappy D, had something to do with the murder. So they indicted him on charges of murder with use of a deadly weapon in connection with the murder of Tupac. His home in Henderson was searched in July. I think you guys remember that, as part of the investigation into the shooting. So it's been 27 years since the death of Tupac. He was shot multiple times, September 7th, 1996, while leaving a boxing match, as I talked about earlier, and he died 6 days later. So the incident, let's go with that. A day after his death, on September 14, 1996, Shakira was a target of a Las Vegas shooting. As Shakira's entourage was not forthcoming as witnesses, they really didn't want to say. And think about that. They witnessed this, you think? And was it that, they're in a car and another car comes up. And as that car comes up, Tupac's on the passenger side and they shoot him. So if the car is that close, it makes you wonder, man, there's got to be somebody who saw that in Tupac's car. And if there's 4 people in Tupac's car, and I think 4 in, the other people's car, for all these years they kept everything secret, I guess you don't break the code, even back then. So the police tried to talk to the people in Tupac's car for a while, but nobody wanted to give it up. Police investigated possible gang links and retaliation to the murder, and they were looking, wow, into the business dealings of the rap music world. And of course, we know there was a lot of business dealings. That was back then. So the significance of this again, the Nation of Islam, they organized a hip hop day of atonement. And this was very interesting. They thought that Notorious B.I.G. had something to do with this. And nobody wanted to give it up. So as we go back to the police and what they uncovered, they said a grand jury indicted Davis on charges of murder with the use of a deadly weapon in connection to the 1996 killing. But again, if he did not kill Tupac, but he know who did, how's he connected with that? Plus with the shooting. So the chief says, I think the best way to characterize that Dwayne Davis was the shot caller for this group of individuals that committed the crime, and he orchestrated the plan that was carried out to commit the crime. Even if Davis, think about this, was not the one that shot Shakur, under Nevada law, he can still be charged with murder. This is because of the state's aiding and abetting statute, he said. So if you help somebody commit a crime, you can be equally as guilty. So, because people wonder, well, how is he being charged if he didn't shoot Tupac? But if he gave the gun to his cousin, then he's just as guilty. Wow. So again, if you help somebody commit a crime, you can be equally as guilty. Davis is set to appear in court to find out when there's going to be a day for the jury trial. And Johnson said police believe, and that's the police chief, Davis obtained a gun that was used from a close associate, but declined to give any more details, saying they would come out during the trial. Wow. So as we talk about this and continue to talk about this, it gets interesting and interesting. So, who is this guy? Who is this Dwayne guy? Who is the guy that supposedly killed Tupac? Well, study this guy because this is the guy that potentially caused the death of Tupac Shakur. So, as the sheriff department said, because people like it's taken all that years, people being frustrated. So the sheriff said many people did not believe the murder of Shakur was important to the police department. I'm here to tell you that was simply not the case. He's been charged again with one count of open murder, use of a deadly weapon with a gang enhancement. So at 60 years old, that's how old this guy is now. He's the last living suspect in this case. Who is this man? Who is this man that caused the death of Tupac Shakur? And you know what? This guy, he's been saying this for years, so we would have known years ago who he was. And why wasn't the police taking him serious? So he was a leader of the Southside Compton Crips when he planned his revenge against Tupac. In 2019, he released a tell-all memoir called Compton Street Legend. So listen to this. In 2019, which is 4 years ago, in the book, he said he had risen up the ranks at the South California notorious gang to become a shot caller and was running a multi-million dollar drug empire nationwide. And when I've heard some of the media say he's a shot caller, they sound funny saying that. I don't know if I do too. Shot caller, rock baller. So anyway, he was running a multi-million dollar drug empire nationwide. Born in Watts, California, him and his family moved to Compton, then a middle-class family-oriented neighborhood for black families. His family and uncle were betting on horses, wow, in Mexico, when Davis's father won $50,000, the equivalent of $1 million today. He wrote in his memoir. So he's writing this. He's telling people what he's doing. With the money, Davis wrote, his parents, his mother, a homemaker from Texas, and his father, a Marine from Virginia, they purchased a house in Compton and two new cars, excited by the promise and possibility of America. When they moved to their block in 65, Davis said, their family was the only black one. Little by little, white families started to move away, like cockroaches fleeing when the lights were turned on, he wrote. One of 17 siblings, he grew up surrounded by family. His mother died from colon cancer in 1980. When Davis was 15, Davis wrote that in 2014 he got the same cancer, now in remission, that killed his mother. Two of his brothers also died, one from cancer, and the other was shot in the streets of Compton. Davis said he first met Death Row Suge Knight when he was 9 years old. He said he started getting involved with the Crips in 71, mostly because it was what all the boys in the neighborhood were doing. He was working in Compton College, but it wasn't really fast enough, he said. He had an opportunity to sell drugs, and he liked how quickly he made money. So Davis wrote that he went to prison for dealing from 85 to 89, and he said his time in prison didn't rehabilitate him, but made him, wow, a hardened gangster. So it didn't do nothing but make him even more want to do bad stuff. So he detailed his conversations with authorities over Shakur's death. Davis was 46 back then and facing federal drug charges, but agreed to speak to them so they would, wow, shred the indictment. So did they? And how was he again allegedly tied to these murders? So three of the men believed to be in a white Cadillac the night of Shakur's shooting have died. Davis is the last living suspect in the case, the police said. On the night of the shooting, Shakur and members of his entourage came to attend the Mike Tyson event. Shakur and Knight saw Davis's nephew, Orlando Anderson, in a hotel. Surveillance footage showed Shakur and Knight beating the nephew, and a fight was stopped by hotel employees. News of the fight got back to Davis, police said, and he started hatching a plan to get revenge. Davis got a firearm from a close associate, police said, and gathered Orlando Anderson, Terrence Brown, and DeAndre Smith to go with them in the infamous white Cadillac ride. Detectives reported on the search warrant collecting multiple computers, .40 caliber bullets, tubs containing photographs, a cell phone, and a hard device. They also took a magazine that featured Shakur and a copy of Compton Street Legend. Wow. So this guy, 4 or 5 years ago, told the police, hey, I had something to do with Tupac's killing. My nephew had something to do with Tupac's killing. Conspiracies around. Okay, so when they raided the house in July, as I put on my reporter investigator hat, think with me. They raided the house in July, his house, and when they raided it, this is interesting. They found computers, they found hard drives, they found phones. So if Tupac was killed in the 90s, are they still keeping the same computers, hard drives, phones? What would they have that would implicate them? Hmm. So how long was this case going on before they, meaning the police said, okay, let's go to that house? What was the pivotal information where they went to that house in July and then they arrest this guy a couple months later? What kind of tip did they get? Is there anybody else that, you know, should be connected with this? Hmm. We can go on and on with this. We can go on and on. Is Tupac alive? Some people say he is. Some people say he's in Canada. Some people say, wow, in Cuba. You look at some of his albums, Machiavelli. Um, he talks about leaving and coming back just like Jesus. Is he like Elvis? Wow. It's an amazing story. Is this guy the last we're going to see? Is Puff Daddy, is Suge Knight involved? Did the police lay low on this? Why didn't they come after this guy earlier? Well, hopefully this case will close, but we know it's not, so it's going to be an ongoing case. We're going to continue to talk about it because, like I said, I talked about Tupac when he died. Now I'm talking about Tupac with this guy, and he has cancer. And is it in remission? Is he having, he's 60 years old? Is he having a change of heart? What is making him really say, I want to talk now? Stay tuned for that. So you've been watching Keeping It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker. Boy, this was a long show. We hope you enjoyed it. We talked about anything and everything. We hope that we enlightened you. Hit our like, hit our subscribe button. Tell your friends that this is an interesting show. We don't talk about anything. We talk about everything. You never know. Email me, parkerman2011@gmail.com. Parkerman2011@gmail.com. You can text me 216-702-3718. 216-702-3718. And I'd like to thank you for, being on our show, supporting us and everything. Let us know what you think. And if you want to see more shows like this, is a very eclectic show that we talked about things today. And I am looking to get more guests on the show. And you'll be surprised at who you may have seen or who you have upcoming. But we do it because of you. So I'm Anthony Parker Alexander. And think about this real quick in closing. If you could change anything in your life, and that one change will change everybody around you, what would you do? Like this person supposedly giving his family member the gun to kill Tupac, changed everything, changed the music world, changed society's world. And now he's ready to admit it and go to jail. Was it conscience? But what one person's action can do is affect everybody else's action. So be careful what you do because it won't just affect you, it will affect everybody around you. Something to think about. So I'm Anthony Parker. Keep your head up. Never look down. Always believe in yourself. And therein will lie your answer. Keep it real. Keep it honest. And keep it simple. I'm Anthony Parker. God bless.